Seth Rogen recently spoke in front of a subcommittee for the Senate. It was the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor, Health, and Human Services. And the reason why he did that is because he has a charity known as Hilarity for Charity that raises awareness about Alzheimer's disease. His mother-in-law actually suffers from Alzheimer's, and he wants to raise money in order to bring awareness to it. Now, while he was giving that speech, he was kind of annoyed because a bunch of senators stood around, took pictures with him, and then as soon as he started his speech, they decided to leave. In fact, he says that there were only 2 people left, and those 2 people were the chairman, Tom Harkin, and also the ranking member, Jerry Moran. Everyone else left. He was annoyed, and he said that Senator Turk was the one that he was really annoyed by because he had tweeted about how he met him and he was so excited. This was the tweet that Seth Rogen sent to him. "Pleasure meeting you. Why did you leave before my speech? Just curious." And then Senator Mark Kirk said the following, "Had a meeting with Captain Jim Lavelle, but watched your testimony after. Thanks for the work to, I don't know."
And Alzheimer's?
Right, yeah, and Alzheimer's, and then keep in touch. And then
I'm sure
keep in touch, and then he included an Instagram picture of the 2 of them.
Right, I'm sure they're going to keep in touch. Yeah,
Yeah.
they seem like they're going to be buds. That's Jim Lovell, who was the captain of Apollo 13.
Well, captain of my heart.
And the only thing I'm more sure of is that he went back and watched the testimony. Yeah. Oh my God, I would have loved to have been a reporter right next to his office. Really? Tell me one thing he said in that testimony.
Well, you know what the most insulting thing was that, he was like, "Why did you guys not stick around for my Alzheimer's testimony?" And one of the senators was like, "Forget about it."
I thought you were going to go with,
So
I forgot to.
I was there, all around.
Okay, right around there, okay.
Sometimes fastball is the best pitch.
Oh, it's okay. I hear you.
Problem everybody out there knows about it. One problem I saw is your hearing. I didn't see any senators sitting there. I saw Harkin.
Yeah.
And I saw Jerry Moran.
Yeah.
And all the other seats were empty.
Yeah, they left.
And you're sitting there, you're a movie star.
Yeah.
Usually the senators at least show up when the cameras are there.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
Why weren't they there? Did you ask anybody where the hell the guys who supposedly work here are?
I honestly assume I hope they had somewhere better to be.
You think so?
No, honestly, I think it's indicative of the mentality that we find so frustrating, is that it seems to be of a low priority. It seems like these people don't care. That's the direct message they're giving by leaving during our testimony, is that they don't care. 2 of them were falling asleep during the first part of the testimony, literally. I mean, I saw it happening. And then they asked questions that had already been answered in the testimonies because they clearly weren't paying attention. I mean, on a very ground floor level, there was some very distressing things I witnessed just being in that room and seeing how 2 of the people seemed to care and everyone else, I have no idea what they were doing.
Look what happens when you smoke a lot of pot like Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
You testify before Congress, then you give a cogent account of that on television. Jesus.
I'm glad his mom made him wear a tie, because that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
But,
totally. His shirt doesn't even snap. It ain't even button. Yeah, I bought it when I was 19. I've gained a little weight since then. Yeah.
So, look, I like that he's calling them out because they were there in the beginning, right? They were there to take pictures, but they weren't there to listen. Yeah. Otherwise, nobody's in the Senate. I don't know if he knows that. Like C-SPAN, when they cover the House or any of the proceedings, like there's no one there. They just focus the camera on the one congressman. None of the other congressmen are there.
But I was given to believe that you were more likely to be at a hearing. Like, I get that the stuff that happens on the floor before a vote, that's not really... there's a lot of theatrics there. It's become theatrics. Maybe that wasn't the intent. You don't need to be there for that. You've got it. You've been to, but committee is where you do the things. Like, that's the whole point. But in defense of those senators, Seth Rogen's testimony was nearly 7 minutes long.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you can't pay attention for that.
So I actually watched it, and he was funny. He was informative. Like, I find it...
He's super talented.
He is super talented. And he is very smart. So I was kind of shocked that, like, I'm not a senator. I'm not a lawmaker. I have absolutely no impact on his charity. I could donate money to it, sure. But I had more interest in what he had to say than people who should have more interest in what he had to say, because they can actually help raise money for his charity.
And the reason you bring celebrities is because they bring attention. They bring the cameras, etc.
Right.
So if you're looking to do something positive for a cause, it makes sense to bring a celebrity. He might not be the ultimate expert on Alzheimer's, but he brings more attention to it. But he brought attention to it apparently for the senators for about a minute, for as long as it took to take pictures. But now he's missing some structural problems with the Senate that he's not aware of. So, for example, he said, like, they didn't pay attention. That's why they asked the questions that were already said in the testimony, right? No. He's missing the real problem there. They asked the questions that were written for them in advance before anyone heard the testimony by his staffers. So that's the actual bigger problem. There's not a senator going, oh yeah, what's your testimony? Oh, wait a minute, I got a question about that, right? No, it's just they hand him notes and he goes, oh, okay, it's like the anchors on TV with the producers. They get
Yes.
okay, and here's the question I'm supposed to ask you. Of course they didn't pay attention. They didn't even write the question. They don't even care about the answer, right?
What do members of Congress do on a day-to-day basis? Like,
well, that was exactly what I was getting to. Thank you for asking that question. Because where did they go? They didn't go to, maybe he met with Captain Lavelle or whatever at some point that day, whatever his name is, right?
Jim Lovell.
Lovell, okay. No, they went to go raise money. That's where they go. They spend at least 50% of their day raising money. I talked to a U.S. congressman who told me that if they catch you eating lunch, and by they he means his own staffers, they will drive you back into the phone area to make sure that you're not wasting your time eating lunch when you could be making calls to rich people begging for money, okay? So it is at least a 50% chance, at least, that those senators all left to go call rich people and say, okay, give me money, I'll do whatever you want, okay? That's the sickest part of all of this.
Well,
So that's
senators have to do it less than members of the House because the
6 years.
cycle is so extreme. But yeah, that's what I mean. They're more likely to be doing what you see in House of Cards, not maybe. Well, I literally didn't want to give a spoiler. Not doing things that might be illegal necessarily. But yeah, they're like, they're plotting ways to move things forward, and that always means getting the money, whether it's specifically for them or for its legislation or for the party. So I think it's large.
And it's so frustrating because while they're doing that, of course they're going to be ignoring their own damn constituents. Like, they're not going to be listening to them or representing them. Like, what good is this so-called, representation when they don't do any of that?
So there might, look, I don't know who was there, and some senators may have had a better place to be than listening to celebrity testimony. Like, that, it's entirely possible. I don't know, but it would be, and there are some good legislators who think, no, man, I had a meeting because we're trying to fix whatever it is need fixing. We're working on the tax bill. We're working on something. And I bet some things guys don't think, sitting around and listening to a thing on Alzheimer's, especially if you're like, hey, man, I'm for it. Like, when that bill comes up for the Alzheimer's money, count me in. I'm done. You can't convince me anymore that I'm convinced, and they may well have somewhere legitimate to be.
You're telling me that they spend most of their time raising money. That's why they weren't. I thought they were all out like at batting cages or putt-putt golf or something.
But those were the good old days.
But you know what it is? The problem is that it's the theatrics. This is a big, typical me indulgent. I want to watch the first part of the clip, too, because the theatrics continue with the MSNBC interview. Not Seth Rogen's issue, but Chris Matthews' issue. So the theatrics is, we got a celebrity in here to talk about this thing. We'll get the coverage for it, and then it doesn't matter, right? So, and like, some people are going to vote for it. They don't need to sit through the whole hearing. They're sold. They're in. And you're not going to convince anyone. That vote's going to go how that vote's going to go, which is probably right. So in that sense, it's all theatrics. But then listen to Chris Matthews' question, if we could.
Problem everybody out there knows about it. One problem I saw is your hearing. I didn't see any senators sitting there. I saw Harkin.
Yeah.
And I saw Jerry Moran.
Yeah.
And all the other seats are empty.
Yeah,
So, like, he didn't see it. He didn't watch it either. Of course he didn't watch it. Why would Chris Matthews watch that testimony, right? That story broke the same, he saw it the same way we saw it, that like they exchanged the tweets. And so like, it's a way, Diane Sawyer's the biggest defender of this. She asks questions like on Monday's show about stories that broke on Friday that we know, and she'll be like, I'm curious. I'm wondering. You're like, well, you're not curious. You read the story in the New York Times Saturday morning. We all read it. Just say, hey, Seth, so you got into this thing with Mark Kirk because you were like, hey, there's no senators there. Like, there's a way to have that segment and not make it seem, and I know this may seem super nitpicky, but I think it totally matters that there's this false sense that Chris Matthews, because what he does, he gets in at 8 in the morning and C-SPAN goes on and he's watching hearings, he's everywhere,
What is he, Michael
and
Schur?
he's like, there's no, it's like he broke the story. He's like, there's only 2 senators there.
It's like he
Get Seth Rogen on the show tonight!
Yes.
It's just part of the fakeness, and you can have Seth Rogen on and you can have that segment, but you don't have to pretend you were watching it. You were doing something else important. You don't have to pretend.
Right, and we all know that the only person in the country who watched that segment was Anna. Okay, all right, and one last thing is, to build on what Ben said. that's the other huge problem in this, which is that no one's going to get convinced. That's not how it works. And in the old days, maybe the senators showed up because they were going to have a debate, and maybe they get convinced one way or another. In this day, you know which way each one of those senators is going to vote, and it's usually 95% of the time, I'm being incredibly generous by saying only 95%, it's dictated by some financial interest, right? Usually campaign contributions, but in the case of Alzheimer's, it might be that they're going to get ranked lower by a conservative think tank if they vote for more spending, right? Or vice versa, some health group might vote Democrats, rank them lower in their rankings if they don't vote for that spending, et cetera. So their vote is predetermined. It is inconceivable that you would have any hearing where a senator would go, good point, I hadn't thought of that, I'm going to change my vote.
It's like cable TV. That's never happened. But and some of the, I don't even think it's necessarily all the way that cynical. I suspect there's some people who want to support that kind of funding who consistently vote for more scientific research, for more money, and they don't care where. I mean, they just, because that's like, of course that's what I want. I mean, that's what we'd do if we were in the Senate. You know, be like, yeah, let's fix that. Let's solve that. What do we need to do to solve that? I'm into it.